So I've came a long way in my shifting of my thoughts and dealing with contrast. And I have someone that's super important to me in my life. And I feel like when I'm tapped in, tuned in, and turned on, everything flows effortlessly between him and I.
Yeah.
And then when I go back into old thought patterns or behaviors or worst case scenarios, sometimes I feel like he goes away and then he comes back and we harmonize and things are amazing. And I realized after listening to you, because I couldn't figure out why I was repeating cycles and patterns, that I was being my own worst enemy and kind of creating the situations.
You said a few things that we want to touch on. Most people calibrate to other people. And there's no stability in that because, from your own point of view, sometimes you're in alignment and sometimes you're not. So if you're really out of alignment and somebody's working really hard to calibrate to you while you're out of alignment, you're going to have a fight. You're not going to have a good experience. If you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and someone calibrates to you, well, then that's good. But it's not stable for either of you or for any of you. And so as you come more and more to realizing that you're wanting to calibrate to your alignment first, to your inner being first, to your vortex version first, then everything makes more sense. At least you understand what's happening or why what is happening is happening. You said you are getting better and better at dealing with contrast. And we want to suggest that rather than seeing yourself as dealing with contrast, that you see yourself as benefiting from it. It's not something to deal with as if you can deal with it and then it will be done. Think of contrast as choices, as variety. So you're wanting to get good at selectively sifting through the contrast and trending in the direction of wanted rather than not wanted. That's the way you deal with contrast. You don't deal with it as in to diminish it. You accept it as an important part of life and you choose from it. And then you be consistent about your choices. But most people who are calibrating to other people aren't consistent about their choices because they're calibrating to other people rather than to their own choices. Did that make sense to you? As you live an experience and you know what you don't want and you launch rockets of desire about what you do want, those are your choices. Maybe you didn't make them consciously, maybe you did, but they are your choices. It's like if you come to the end of a road where you can go that way or that way. If you don't go that way, isn't that way implied? So by knowing what you don't want, what you do want is implied, more than implied. It is very clear to the universe. And so as you calibrate to those choices and to your inner being who stands there with those choices, then everything's easier.
And how do you, I find myself when I get into these overthinking patterns of like negative thoughts or emotions or old habitual, like things even from my past, and like I'm aware like, okay, like this is not a great thought.
Stop for just a moment because we want to give you something really easy here. Whenever anybody says overthinking, 100% of the time it's because you're on the lower half of the emotional scale and you're trying to fix whatever it is through action or through words or through thoughts. It's like pushing a noodle. No one is ever tuned in, tapped in, turned on, following that fantastic flow of ideas and saying, oh, I'm overthinking. Because when you're in that flow, it doesn't feel like overthinking. It feels wonderful. It feels intoxicating. It feels invigorating. It feels consuming. It feels undeniable. So you never say, I'm overthinking anything when you're in alignment. Therefore, it's a really good statement to make. Anytime you say, I'm overthinking it, substitute those words with, I want to be a feeler, not a thinker right now. Because you're never over-feeling it, because your feeling is always accurate. You're just not utilizing the information that your feeling is giving you in a way that will benefit you. You can't talk yourself out of that trouble. The more you focus upon it, the bigger it gets and the more clever ways it has of expressing itself in your life.
Yeah, and I found that, like, when I have wanted or craved something or someone, or like when I feel really happy with myself and I'm getting that bits of like after going through a divorce, and honestly the divorce was the best thing that could have happened.
All right, so we're happy that you just said that, because we were going to play with you about those words too, in the same way that you said dealing with contrast, and we're suggesting that you say feeling with contrast when you say going through a divorce. And then right behind it you said it was the best thing that ever happened. But when you think about going through the divorce, that's not where your emotion is it? Mm-hmm. In other words, it might just be empty words in this situation, but I went through a divorce, I made it through the rain and kept my self-respect, and there's a song in there somewhere.
I think it made, the word I'm looking for is my divorce, even though
I'm
there
going to interrupt you again.
Oh.
My divorce brought me clarity.
Yes.
And clarity is what I live for.
And here I am now, and I'm not where I was, and I'm really grateful for where I currently am. And I'm sifting through my thoughts more and more to where I want to go.
Well, sift through your feelings more than your thoughts. Here's a really good distinction. Stay with us. This is going to really be helpful to everyone. We've been saying recently, and Esther's really been experiencing it, that's part of the reason we're talking about it so much, is because she's so hot on this idea. But when an impulse comes to you that's just undeniable, that you just can't turn away from, it's just an idea that feels so good that no matter what anybody else thinks about it, what they think is irrelevant in relationship with how you feel about it. When you follow that kind of a thread, it gives you joy, it gives you life, and it gives you results and manifestations and more. It's a really wonderful thread to follow, or trend to follow. But when you're trying to think your way out of a problem, you're actually trending in opposition to what you want, because the vibration of the problem and the vibration of the solution are entirely different frequencies. So what we would like you to realize is that every time you're beating the drum of the problem, there's a solution that your inner being is beating the drum of, and in a moment that you're not trying so hard to solve the problem, you'll be inspired to things that will lead you to what you're wanting. So what was the statement that you just made? What was the point that you were wanting to make with us? Can you find those words again?
Yeah, I find myself, like, when it comes to someone that I want to be with, when I get that good feeling because, like, I'm feeling good with myself, I notice things are harmonizing between me and them very well.
Well, you're very persuasive then, even if they're not really right on your wavelength. When you are in concert, in vibrational concert with your inner being, your attraction power is on steroids. Your power of positive influence is so huge when you are feeling great.
Yeah, and I find myself when I don't feel great, it all down spirals, and I have a difficult time pulling myself out to feeling great. So what's the answer?
Here's some multiple choices. When I don't feel great, should I keep talking? No. When I don't feel great, should I try to explain? No. When I don't feel great, what should I do? Anything and everything you can to feel better. Take a break, take a walk, put your feet in a bucket of water or a bigger bowl of water. In other words, do something that changes your focus. Meditate, quiet your mind, allow your vibrational cork to float, and then, because every conversation you have with yourself or with someone else when you don't feel great never leads to what you want. Never, ever, ever. However, it does launch more rockets. It does make the calling stronger. But in that red hot minute, talking it over is not going to give you any results that you're going to get to witness right then.
And I've noticed that's where I go to. Like, if something is bothering me or I'm not feeling great, I try to talk it out to feel.
Almost everybody does, because remember, the goal of most is to be right, not to feel good. So all that conversation becomes a debate or a competition about who's really right. And do you ever get from the other one, well, I hear what you're saying to me, but when something similar was happening to you, you did that. In other words, your Abraham buddies will get all over you about your discord, but that hasn't got anything to do with anything, does it? It's just how I feel right now and what I'm doing about it. Here's the rule of thumb that we would give to ourselves if we were standing in your physical shoes. If you're feeling great, talk, 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 talk. Milk it, express it, dramatize it, explain it, smile about it, use hand gestures, point in every way you can to the things that you feel excited about, because only good and gooder can come from that. If you're not feeling so good, do your best to clam up. Do your best to not explain it, not dramatize it, not express it, not use hand gestures.
No, it makes sense. And I find myself when I feel not the best, I get worried, like I have to think about what I want more because I don't want my desire not to happen.
Well, here's the thing. That is describing a little bit of mistrust is too strong a word in your case. Misunderstanding might be a better word, but not really trusting quite yet the realness and the bigness of your vortex. And so you just get better and better at that. Every now and again you'll get wadded up in something that seems to require your attention because you're wadded up in it. In other words, something happened, and so it's easy to notice what happened and have a knee-jerk response to it. As that's happening to you, if you are increasingly aware of the way you feel and you've really made a decision that you're going to do your best to quiet things down when you feel like that and ramp things up when you're about her, and it's not an easy thing to do because the law of attraction doesn't make it easy for you, because when you're trending there's momentum, and when there's momentum about thoughts are being fed to you and you're picking them up. In other words, you're all psychically receptive to thoughts that are in the air. It's like you could walk into a room and see the looks on somebody's face when they look up and see you, and the look on their face might not be a good look, which has nothing to do with you, but you might take it personally. That would be a good time to look down. That would be a good time to withdraw. That would be a good time to not say in your own mind, what's wrong with you? Or what's up with that? Don't engage mentally with anything you don't want more of. You don't want more of scowls. You don't want more of hand gestures in the street. There are a lot of things that you don't want more of, and 100% of the time they feel bad when you're having some of it. And so again, Abraham, now you're not just teaching selfishness. Are you actually telling us to put our head in the sand? And we say, yes, and when you get your head in that hole, meditate. You see, we can't ask you to not look at that. We can't say, don't give your attention to that, because now you're giving your attention to that thing that we don't think is a good idea for you to give your attention to. So when we say withdraw from that bad thought, your mind's on that bad thought, and now you're thinking about that bad thought, and you might even get all justified and self-righteous as you justifiably ignore that thought, but you're still offering a vibration about it because you're still pushing against it. So the key is to just want so much to feel good that you practice it when it's easy, and then the more you practice it when it's easy, the more easy it will be to do it more and more of the time. You create through your focus. You create through your focus. Your focus causes you to emanate a vibration which meets up. Now sometimes you see something, and you seeing it is what makes you aware of a vibration. Jesus said turn the other cheek, and that's exactly what he was talking about. Seek those things that feel good to you, and don't amplify or add to or attract those things that don't. Abraham, you teach selfishness. Yes, we do. Because if you're not selfish enough to tune to who you really are, then you don't have anything to give anybody anyway. We think you've got it figured out. We don't hear you say anything that is not vibrationally accurate.